Good day, everyone. I am Jessamine D. Tumindog, your assigned reporter for today, together with Miss Dimple K. Solitario and Mr. Ricky Sanchez. Our topic for today is materials for cultural awareness, the culture of language and the language of culture. Materials for cultural awareness. What is cultural awareness? Cultural awareness is all about recognizing and understanding that we all have different values shaped by our diverse cultural backgrounds. So, cultural awareness is being aware of cultural differences as we are all different individuals with diverse culture. So, there's a possibility that we are of different value because as we can observe, our values mostly influenced by the culture in our community. Introduction. The result of the communicative term to English language teaching is the marginalization or the complete exclusion of culturally specific content in published teaching materials. So, this thought means that one result of the communicative turn that ELT has undergone since the late 1970s is the marginalization. So, marginalization is the separation of culturally unique people from mainstream society because of the total exclusion of the published textbook content. The shift focuses on the function of mental process to EFL teaching, driven by needs analysis and predictable performance, coincided to the rising understanding of the expanding role of English as an international language. Canningsworth 1984 stated the case against the culture-specific course book. Canningsworth culture-specific course book will only be beneficial or it will only be of relevance to the learners who understand already the cultural background in which it is set. So, only students who are already familiar with the cultural setting in which the course book is situated can find value of relevance in it. Kanabitang kung asa ra exclusive ang isa ka course book, mao ra sad nga students ang makarelate kadtong course book nga gihimo kay exclusive raman siya sa isa ka particular nga lugar. So, ang mga student nga dili familiar ana nga lugar, lisod gyud na para sa ila maong gahatag siya og separation. So, to develop cultural awareness alongside with language awareness, materials need to provide more than a token acknowledgement of cultural identity and address more thoroughly the kind of cultural adjustment that underlies the experience of learning a foreign language. One powerful means of raising this kind of awareness in learners is through literary text, which mimic or directly present experiences of cultural estrangement. The fifth skill. Culture as a fifth skill refers to a set of abilities: the ability to perceive and recognize cultural differences, the ability to accept cultural differences, the ability to appreciate and value cultural differences. So, what is this fifth skill? It is the fifth skill which refer to a set of abilities. The fifth skill implies is the mindset and techniques to adapt your use of English to learn about, understand, and appreciate the values, ways of doing things, and unique qualities of other cultures. So it involves understanding how to use language to accept differences, to be flexible and tolerant of ways of doing things which might be different to yours. According to Raymond, culture is one of the two or three most complicated words in the English language. There has been various nominations for the title Fifth Skill, but it argued that these are all add-ons to the four fundamental language abilities. Cramch 1993 asserts that culture has a far greater status. Culture in language learning is not an optional fifth skill added on top of teaching speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Since day one, it has been present in the background, waiting to surprise good language learners when they least expect it by exposing the limits of their tenaciously acquired communicative skill and testing their capacity to make sense of the world. So kining fifth skill, dili daw ni siya dugang sa speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Kung dili, nana siya daan, aning upat, gahulat ug nay maka-recognize niya nga lahi-lahi gyud ang culture sa language o ang language sa culture. Nagid sila iya nga identity. O kita na bahala if ato ba nang i-accept and appreciate the differences. So, as I mentioned earlier, fifth skill has always been there. Cultural awareness or the fifth skill is not the fifth skill, but the first skill nara siya dira nakatago. Siya ang test if ang learner sa language ma-recognize ba niya ang cultural differences ug na-appreciate ba niya ang cultural differences diya sa iyang pagtuon sa language.
Good day everyone, this is Dimple KC Solitario, and for today's video lecture, I am going to discuss about another country. They do things differently there. It is under the materials and cultural awareness. So, let's begin. Different countries, different language. Well, to understand it more, it is not that just the language differs at all in the other countries. They can also be different with their cultural backgrounds, their beliefs, values, and customs. Now, according to Victor Slosky, 1917, the sensation of seeing one's own language and culture refracted through the medium of foreign language and culture reflects. This is the differentiation of the second language used by the entire country, which that country is been immune with it and takes place to use it, that could be able to reflect with their culture already. For instance, the Philippines as one of the country who's very strong when it comes to the English language, in which in today's generation, mostly of the Filipinos mastered to use the second language. Now, based on Tolstoy's literary technique as the familiarization or making the familiar seem strange, second language or the foreign language have been circulating all over the world, especially learners encountering this foreign language for the first time. That allows them to be familiar with their culture so much given that they didn't even see it. The culture of learners provides them with one way of looking at the world and their language with one way of articulating that perception. According to Byram 1990, he describes the experience of the familiarization involved in foreign language learning as a modification of monocultural language awareness. Now, this monocultural awareness suggests that there is a largely untapped potential in teaching materials for focusing as much on the source culture as the stimulus culture and on the effect upon the learner of this modification. There are two cultures under this modification. First is the target culture, which is deliberately avoided to be used, that suggests an objective body of knowledge to be assimilated and probably tested. Second is the stimulus culture. This is taken from Lavery 1993 and reinforces the fact that the awareness to be raised is intercultural rather than simply cultural. There is a way of stimulus culture in learning. It is sensitizing learners. Whole range of stimulating literary texts that employ deliberately strategies of defamiliarization, taking voyages of discovery, or simply making them look afresh at their everyday surroundings. Fictions, historical, science fictions, and many more are some of the genres of writing that helps learners of language and culture to be able to encourage the learner not simply to observe the differences in the other culture, but to become less ethnocentric and more culturally relativist, to look at their own cultural environment through fresh eyes. Using intercultural texts in the language classroom prepares the learners for the encounter of cultural of others and promote greater intercultural awareness. Now let's move with our second topic, the culture of language and the language of culture. Now, the language and culture are intertwined. However, a particular language usually points out to a specific group of people. When you are interacting with another language, it means that you are also interacting with the other culture that speaks the language. Remember that you cannot understand one's culture without accessing its language directly. But how? To understand and know the culture of language and the language of culture in other country, learners are need to study any backgrounds of these by the guidance of the teachers. Therefore, both learners and teachers of a second language need to understand culture differences in order to recognize that people in the world are not all the same. Language cannot be separated completely from the culture because language is deeply embedded with it. There are reasons for familiarizing learners with the cultural components. So the learners should develop their communicative skills. Second, to understand the linguistics and behavioral patterns of both the target and the native culture at more conscious level. Third, to develop both intercultural and international understanding. And lastly, to facilitate the process of target language learning. Moreover, language instructional materials need to help the learners become communicatively competent, and communicative competence is believed to incorporate linguistic competence, pragmatic competence, and social linguistic competence. This social linguistic component of communication refers to rules of speaking with dependent social, pragmatic, and cultural elements. Thus, which linguistic realization we use of a particular function in any language, such as making an apology or a request, might depend on the social status of the speaker or hearer, on his or her age, gender, or any other social factors. This might call for the performance of a certain speech act in one culture but not in another. To sum up, the use of culture-based tasks in language instructional materials will help learners to get familiar with the target culture, and performing these tasks should involve the cultural values of the target language, accompanied by the native ones, designed for every level. Putting into practice, hopefully the teachers will succeed in combining language learning and cultural learning, so that overall purpose would be able to provide lessons in which students are able to develop both kind of knowledge as interrelated parts of language knowledge. So that is all. I hope you got something. Thank you for listening.